Nope.
All right. Well, it's a thing where you can chat and do all this kind of crap. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it better than Facebook voice chat.
Yeah, it sounds a lot crisper.
Yeah, yeah, it's the new alternative to Google Hangouts and such. So, did you see my comment that I wrote to you about objective evil?
Yeah.
Well, what did you get from that?
I agree because you can't have light without dark. You can't have good without evil. You have to have it's a duality. They both have to exist. If one exists, the other has to.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're pretty logical and rational to me. Not much I can say about that. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk to me about?
um, yeah, like I said before, like I found out about you through DP. I think you got way too much shit. I think you got shit on way too fucking hard just because of what you believe. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but respect, there's got to be some balance of respect.
Well, it wasn't just because of my religious beliefs or views on science. Me and the guy used to be friends for a long time, and things changed, obviously.
Yeah. I know how that is. You think you know people, you trust them, and then, you wake up one morning, you got a knife in your back.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons. I don't know if you heard, I announced this on YouTube recently. I'm letting people know that within 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, Friday, I'm deleting my YouTube channel and I'm going over to BitChute.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I feel like YouTube is it's a website where people get rewarded for hurting other people, whether it be emotionally, mentally, physically, or just so they can get monetization and get paid and views by making other people feel like crap. I'm not really into all that kind of thing.
Yeah, like that's why I watch certain things on YouTube, but like when people's like, "Oh, you need to watch this new thing," and I watch it for like 10 seconds, is like it's just a guy like shocking himself. Why is that entertaining?
Yeah. Yeah. I recently checked out the new version of DP without TJ. And there's a guy on there I actually get along with called Billy the Fridge. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yeah. I'm watching all of the DP, but Billy's awesome. Like he's not like an antagonist. He tries to let everyone have equal time and speak, and he seems like a cool guy.
Yeah, I've been in live chat with him, and he's always been respectful and decent. Some of his buddies were kind of jerks, but Billy and we talked, and I even told him, I said, look, I think that you should continue your music career. I think you've got some talent here. Well, the next day after he got done talking with me, Ben actually treated him like shit and then decided that they wanted to hook dog shockers up to Billy's neck and fry him over it. And I actually felt bad. I felt like because he interacted positively with me, he was being punished in some way.
Yeah, like you're seen as the bad guy, and it's like I don't get it. Everyone has skeletons in their closet. Everyone makes mistakes, but why single everyone else out because of their association with someone that you don't like?
Yeah, well, I think one of the reasons why I've become such an easy target, if you think about this, and I've put some thought into it, what could I possibly do to get myself in trouble? And I looked at some of the other users out there who get targeted, and I noticed
G-Man.
Well, not just G-Man, but we all have a pattern, and our pattern is that we put our actual self on video. We put our real names and all that, as where a lot of other people, they give themselves silly names and they hide.
PewDiePie.
Yeah, right? Everybody knows Brett Keane, so they can actually look me up, find out where I live, all that kind of stuff. I'm easy to have fun with.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, like some of the stuff I laughed at, but it's only because, like you said, they're playing characters. Like, I don't think TJ is really that angry all the time. I don't think, like you said, Billy's cool. I think that's who he is. Like, no matter what character he plays, that's him. But
yeah, I don't think that Billy's actually trying to pretend to be anything that he's not. I do think, however, that TJ is actually trying to play something that he's not. Because I remember whenever I was friends with him, I remember who the guy was I would talk to in the background compared to the thing that people see now.
Yeah. And like, like I said, I only know you from what they've said, what they've shown. And I'm that type of person. Like, I don't like judging someone if I don't know both sides,
Mm-hmm.
because, they're looking at it from one point of view, while the other point of view, which is yours, could be a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Well, I mean, there's quite a few things that are really easy to understand, and a lot of DP fans have already discovered this. Take Paul's ego, for instance. He was the guy who did most of the real hating, while TJ just kind of went along with it. The guy, Paul's ego, cheated on his wife, and they ended up getting divorced, and he lost everything due to it. He also ends up getting a girlfriend out of the mental institute, which she ended up leaving him also recently. Now let's take a look at me. I've been married for over 20 years. I've got 2 beautiful children, a nice home. It doesn't seem like I'm the one doing the fucking up here, if you think about it.
yeah,
You
it's
know?
like, oh, you guys could be all mad you want, but here I am. I have what I want. And that's the thing, like, I've over there, watching the shows and stuff, like, they shit on your kids, your wife, and it's like, why? It's got to be for shock value. That's the only thing I can think of. It's like they're try to bring you down. Like I said before, like, you weathered the storm. In the end, you came on top because you didn't sell yourself. You didn't, you know, become what they wanted you to become. You were still you, regardless.
You do know that I was, before becoming a believer, I was one of the original former atheists that actually had come
Yeah.
out on YouTube. Yeah, so it's weird. A lot of people kind of treated atheism like a religion. When I started making videos saying, you know what, I think I need to be a little bit more open minded. I need to start really reevaluating the way I think and the way I do things, and see if there's actually any truth to what these people are claiming. I noticed very quickly I started to lose friends. I almost felt like I was a part of a damn death cult or something. I was like, come on, atheism's supposed to be about lack of belief in deities, not about, oh, you don't lack of belief like me, you're a prick, then bye-bye. Kind of weird.
Yeah. And like with me, like, I'm in the middle. Like, I'm a rational, logical person, but I've had experiences that science can't explain. So it's like I'm not a Christian or a God believer, but I'm also not an atheist because I've had experiences that I can't explain. So
Well, what kind of experiences have you had? Are you able to try to like describe them? I
oh yeah.
understand you don't know where they're coming from or why, but give me an idea what you're talking about. Did something come at you and grab you? What happened?
I've had experiences where like metaphysical experiences. Like I'm trying to think of a good one. The one that got me the most, that probably had the biggest effect on me, was I was trying to go to bed one night, and I had my classical music going and everything. And all of a sudden, like, I felt this heaviness in the air. And I don't know if I was hallucinating or if I was dreaming. I don't think I was dreaming. And there were, because my bed was kind of like the walls here. Wait, where is it? There. Walls here, bed was like over here. Like, it was going across the room. And all of a sudden, there was like 2 monks on the left side, 2 monks on the right side, and on the foot of the bed. And I'm like, okay, what the hell? I'm like, oh, I must be dreaming. And all of a sudden, the room got so heavy with negative emotion.
What was it that you seen? Sorry, I don't
Oh,
know. Did I hear monks or what was that?
monks, yeah. Well, people with black hooded robes. I thought,
Oh, that sounds more like Satan worshippers. Monks usually wear light brown like Jedis.
yeah. And like I said, the room got really heavy with like negative emotion. And like it felt like it was pressing down on me. And all of a sudden, there was this big red face, probably about 2 feet wide and like 3 feet long, like probably like a foot from me. And it was bright red, like red, like I've never seen. And all of a sudden, like I said, not a religious person. My first instinct was to throw the covers over my head and say, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, evil be gone. I had to do that for 2 hours before that like heavy darkness went away. And that was the first time, like, I got up, I went into the kitchen, turned all the lights on in the house. I didn't,
Hold on one second. Let me ask you something.
okay,
Why did you call out to Jesus Christ or have that instinct? Why didn't you call out to Allah or Thor or any of the Olympian gods? Why Jesus?
I don't know. It was just the first thing that popped in my head. It just felt like that's what I needed to say at that time. Um, and the thing is, like, I, if anything, I'm like a polytheistic because if I had to put myself anywhere, or an agnostic polytheistic, something like that, because I tend to go through like Greek, I don't know, Norse or Egyptian mythologies where I find more comfort. But in that instant, that was the only thing that I could think of, and it worked. And so after that, I'm just like, okay, well, if I'm having this experience, science can't explain that. I mean, they could try, like, oh, it's schizophrenia or he was dreaming. It's like, no, because that
Well,
was
there
way
is
too real.
well, I obviously I'm a man of faith and all that, but I do understand that there are other alternatives to why someone might have experiences. Have you ever been to a doctor and been diagnosed for night terrors before?
No, that was the one and only time that it happened. The only thing I've been diagnosed with is borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. And that was the narcissism was like a couple like months ago. But other than that, my mind is fine. Just it's always scrambled up with
Well, it
thoughts and
doesn't.
stuff.
If a person has night terrors, it doesn't mean you're crazy or there's something wrong with you. It's actually a
Yeah,
very common thing. But you said that you were laying there, felt like it was real, that you were actually almost awake.
yeah,
You felt paralyzed and pressure on your chest. These sound like symptoms of night terrors. Now, even if it was a night terror, that doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't actually experience what you saw. Do you see what
yeah.
I'm saying?
It was just like such a profound thing. And then I started thinking, it's like, why did I go directly for that line? Why didn't I just say, go away? Why did I feel like I had to repeat that mantra over and over and over again? Um, and it's just like I said, I'm pulled towards spirituality at the same time with logic, and I couldn't make the two work. So like I've been kind of drifting, between one and the other for most of my life. Um, because like through a lot of research, I understood why Christianity came or why it split from Catholicism. I've understood a lot. I've done a lot of research, and when they say ignorance is bliss, I actually agree with it. I wish I didn't know the shit that I know. I wish I could go back and just like, oh, well, it was a spiritual thing. Okay, that explains it. But because I've done so much research, it's so hard to separate. Okay, is this a logical thing or is this a spiritual thing? Especially when both of them kind of could work in either scenario.
See, that's one thing I never understood. I've heard non-believers say to me, they said it's not logical and rational to believe the powerful mind in the universe created billions of minds. And I have to ask myself, how is it more logical to believe that some rocks in space collided and some shit flung all over the place and we just appeared, and then we came from the womb of baboons through evolution? I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on the way you look at it. I think we all have a limited perception of reality. We can only see so far into our universe and have understanding. Alls I ask, I'm not trying to get people to sign up for the Jesus Club or go to church and listen to some Joel Osteen son of a bitch. I'm just saying be open minded and be true to yourself, because if you're true to yourself, then you'll end up finding the external truth.
Yeah. And that's why when, I look back at all the shit that you put up with, I'm like, you never sold out. You never went, you never like folded. You were like, this is who I am. If you don't like it, oh well. And like, honestly, like I admire that because I struggle with that. Like right now, because of all the stuff I found out, with my mental health, like I'm going through an identity crisis. I don't know who the hell I am. I don't know what to believe. And it's like everything is all upside down, inside out. And I'm just like, you know what? I'll just do what I feel is right. I might never become, like a Christian, but that doesn't mean I can't admire and respect that, because because
You don't
there's
have to wear a label in order to believe and have rational thoughts about there being a God. Like I said, if you never call yourself a Christian, yet you're open to the idea that there's a great mind out there that is a part of your existence, right then and there, you've got your meaning, you've got your intrinsic purpose, and it'll help you to be able to figure out when you're trying to figure out and understand the universe, somehow in all that, you find yourself. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
oh yeah, because like I know in New York City there was this show at the planetarium called Journey to the Stars, and the thing is, like watching it, I felt homesick. Like I'm watching something that I used to know all the time, and I've always been a person of space. Like I love space. I love everything about the universe. And logically, I'm like, okay, the chances of everything being exactly how they are, I'm like, science might be an answer, but having something kind of overseeing everything, like, okay, well, this has to spin this way is like that also makes sense. Just like, you know, there's a theory about us coming, that we're actually aliens and stuff like that. Like, that's why nothing, like, we're the dominant species because we're not from here. That also could be an answer. But, like, oh, no, it's not aliens. We don't have any proof of them. And it's like, that's dumb. Why? There's no,
I know this sounds weird, Mr. Riley, but if you ever really sit down and take a look at the Bible, and I'm sure you've read quite a bit of it and you've heard stuff, but if you really look at how God is represented and described in the Bible,
yeah,
look at the definition of alien, and there you've got God. God
yeah,
is not an original inhabitor of the earth. We are originally from something that is not of this world.
yeah. And see, with me, I think gods were just aliens. I mean, I know that might be one of the far fetched things, but if you look at what aliens were, like not like the Greys and stuff like that, but they looked humanish. And if we're made in God's image, what if, what if like they mistook angels for or aliens for angels because they're smarter, than more technology, they might have powers or something that they couldn't explain back then. And when you look at it, it's like if science is true and religion could be true, aliens could be true. Like no one knows what started everything. No one knows why things are the way they are. And I think that's why religion has been here longer than science because they needed something to explain what was going on. So they took what was around them. Where would you get the idea for, a flood story if it never happened? Every culture has a flood story. That tells me that at least the Bible got that right. That had to have been happening. If every culture in the world, and it's all about the same time frame too.
Well, it's not just that. I notice, and I know you're not trying to do this, but I've noticed with a lot of non-believers, they separate religion from science. Did you know that the man who actually came up with the Big Bang Theory was a Catholic priest? Most of our great inventions, including quantum physics and theories, even evolution by Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin says in his book, Descent of Man, that he believes that an intelligent mind designed the system that he calls evolution. So, damn near 95% of all scientists who've ever created something and will forever be historically known were believers in God. Them
Yeah.
gourd believers shut you way up. Go ahead.
See, that's the other thing I admire. You can laugh about it.
Well, I like to be funny. I've always tried to enjoy myself. That's probably why at one point in time, them guys actually liked me.
Yeah, because you can poke fun at yourself, and not a lot of people can do that. Um, like I hate to bring this up, but like the whole manatee thing, like I think it's funny because you also laugh about it. You joke about it, you know, and it's like not a lot of people can make fun of themselves. I think that's a good quality. You don't take
I,
yourself too
I do
serious.
I do question the name and the label. I don't know if you've ever heard me do this. Even though I find it funny, there's also something sad about it, but not with me. I don't know if you knew this, but a while back, TJ ended up going out into a relationship with a girl by the name of Holly, and
Yeah,
he brought her onto a live broadcast, and a bunch of people started spamming the screen saying that she looked like a fucking sea cow, as a manatee.
yeah.
So whenever he started calling me this years later, and I was his best friend, I was like, "That's sad, man. You're calling me something that atheists called your girlfriend." It's just I think he could have come up with a more imaginative name for me, like ass face or something.
And but yeah, and like with me, like I grew up and I was bullied because of my
Hey,
weight.
can you hold on 1 second? I
Yeah,
need to use the restroom. You do see that we're broadcasting, right?
yeah.
You don't have a problem with that.
No.
Okay. I'll be right back. Now, feel free to talk about whatever you want. I'll be able to hear you. I've got you hooked up to 400 woofer watt stereo speakers. All right.
Nice.
Go ahead.
All right. So I growing up, I didn't have a mother. I didn't have a father. Because my mother just preferred sex and drugs and stuff. And you know, I was raised by my grandmother and my uncle, who was like my father figure. He ended up dying when I was young. Like my life, I've always had a hard life, but I've always kept going. I don't know what drives me. I don't know why I get up every morning and deal with all the shit that I deal with, but it's people that can do that, that have gone through rough times, that survive. I admire that because there's days where I don't think I can keep going because either my body hurts too bad or my mind hurts too bad. But, you know, that's why I turn to you know, DP and shit like in like YouTube and stuff because I wanted that laugh. Like when you're laughing, you're not thinking about everything that's wrong. You're thinking about, hey, that's kind of funny. And for that brief moment, nothing else matters. But, you know, there's some people who aren't strong enough to deal with stuff. Like, if I had to put up with thousands and thousands of people just spamming me, calling my house all the time, I couldn't deal with that. That's why, like, I don't know how the hell you dealt with it, Brett. I couldn't. It's bad enough when I was in school and people were picking on me, because of my size or whatever. That was like 30 people, 40 people at most. Thousands? Nah. I would have done stupid stuff a long time ago. But, that's why, like, yeah, on DP, you're kind of the bad guy, but I don't see that. We all make choices and mistakes and stuff like that, but in the end, you got to do what you think is best for you. And, you know, to anyone that's watching, yeah, life could be hard right now, but every day you're alive, you survive the worst, you know. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. um, but yeah, it's just mental illness is nothing to play around with because, like I said, every day I struggle to just keep going, and that's why I like reaching out to people. That's why I have no problem telling my stories about any part of my life. I'm an open book because if I can help at least one person not feel like shit, not feel alone, not feel like no one cares, I've done my job. you know, I wanted to start a YouTube channel. I tried. I just didn't have the motivation or determination because I also don't think anyone would actually watch it. But I guess every big fish starts out as a small fish. Um, but yeah, it's a crazy thing. Just how powerful our minds are, how creative and constructive they can be. On the same flip of the coin, how destructive they can be and how limiting, how they can be a prison. You know, People say going to prison is the worst thing they've ever experienced. I think once you're a prisoner of your own mind, that's 100 times worse. Um, Trying to think what else I could talk about. Um, uh, but yeah, it's I got bullied and beaten for 3 years because of my size when I was a kid, from age 10 to 13. It changes you, dude. Man, it really just changes how you interact with people, how you feel, what you think, what you see. You know, but I don't know. I guess it's made me stronger. It's made me so I am alive. So I can deal with all this crap. Man, 25 minutes, not bad. Um, but yeah, it's just I don't know. You know, just hang in there, do what you can. The other thing I've realized is that you can't let people make you out to be what they want you to be. Like Brett said, you gotta be you, whatever context that is, whatever. Even if you're not able to do it out in the open, like if your sexual orientation or your religious beliefs or anything like that is a hindrance to other people. I know it can be hard to be yourself, but do it in little ways. Write songs, poetry, music, art, whatever. There's a million and one outlets.
I'm back.
Yay.
Hey, it sounds to me like you have yourself figured out pretty good. I know you said earlier you have a hard time finding yourself, but you seem like the type of person that wants to help people.
That's all I've ever wanted to do because, like, when I growing up, it was just me. I didn't have friends. I didn't have people to help me. When I was getting bullied and beaten, no one was in my corner. I had to do it all myself. So I had to, you know, I only could rely on myself. So I had to figure out, okay, what can I do? What can I not do? What's my limitations? Can I go past those limitations? And eventually, I just by being me, I found people who I care about, who care about me. I don't have a million friends, but I have a handful that I like, that I trust.
Well, you know what they say, you're divinely blessed if you can find at least one person in this world that you can trust and put your life in their hands. So if you've got a handful or more, you're doing pretty damn good for yourself there, fella.
Yeah, and like I tell people, it's like I might not have anything to show for my life, but I'm not in jail. I'm not on heavy drugs. I'm not doing stupid things. I'm not driving drunk. I'm I'm doing decent for the shit hand I was dealt. I've done pretty well with it.
What do you do for hobbies and fun whenever you're not sitting on a podcast with the French vanilla? Right.
When I was expecting you to actually say that, I was like, hold on, I got a French vanilla situation, and but I write poetry, I write songs. I actually help friends out if they're like moving and stuff. I try to go walking, but I get a really bad back right now, and I might have to have knee surgery because my patella is not where it's supposed to be. The kneecap itself, and like, but I play video games. I've been playing the new Modern Warfare for a little bit. Um, I research everything. If someone says a word that I don't know or a person I don't know, I research it. I like information. I'm an info junkie.
Well, there you go, man. It sounds like you got some good stuff. You a gamer? Besides doing the battle, or what was it that you said? Is
Modern Warfare.
isn't that like a military game? I play Fallout and Skyrim.
Oh, I love both of those games. I haven't beaten Skyrim or Fall. Oh no, I beat Fallout, but I never beat Skyrim, and I put like 200 hours into that game.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, because it was right after I got out of college, I had nothing to do, so I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna play this game. This looks cool, and I played for like 3 days straight, and I'm like, I need sleep now.
I hear you there.
Yeah, I never got to check out games you love though. I don't know why.
Yeah, that was a YouTube channel where I just did games and also had a couple other people doing some videos up there and all that. The reason why we closed that down is one, I had a guy who had severe depression by the name of J Dubs who was doing videos at the time, and people kept attacking him because they had issue with me at the time. You know, if you're kind of not for DP, then they immediately treat you like shit. Plus,
Yeah.
my young son was also doing some videos, and they treated him like absolute shit too. It's terrible. It's awful. I think that if you have a problem with someone, you should deal with that person, not go outside of it. There's only one time in my entire existence where I went beyond the person that was giving me shit.
Yeah. And see, my thoughts on that is if you have a problem with a person, deal with that person. Don't take it out on everyone else that they're associated with. It's like, what does that do? That just makes more and more problems, like for nothing.
Right. Absolutely. So anything else you want to ask me or talk about?
Um, there was something. I can't remember what it was now. Um, crap, I forgot what it
Oh, I
was.
did mean to ask you something while you're thinking that over.
Yeah,
You had said that you had looked into like pagan deities like Egypt and all this. This went
yeah,
on before the dream or before this awakening experience you had, right?
yeah. It was way before it.
So you were already familiar with other stories or representations of God long before you called out to Jesus.
Yeah.
Why didn't you call out to any of the Egyptian deities or any of the stuff that you had looked into before? Why Jesus out of all the figures?
Like I said, like I'm not sure. But like I grew up in a Baptist house. But my grams, because I lived with my grams since I was like 2 weeks old. Um, with her kids, which was my mom and my uncle, she never forced them to believe anything. They said you could go. She was like, you can believe what you want to believe. You know, that's up to you. My uncle went Baptist. My mom went pagan. But my mom's now a Christian. She went from a pagan to a Wiccan to a Christian. Um, and with me, I was like, I'm just still trying to find where I belong. You know, I haven't turned down the idea of being a Christian. Um, but there's a lot of contradictions I don't like. And that's what I was actually going to ask you. Okay, so I think it is Genesis 4:6 or 6:4. When after the flood, or no, when God had realized that the world had become wicked and it wasn't what He wanted, and He flooded the earth. Because I was reading this King James, and one of the verses, one of the things it said is like, he said, "I'm sorry I ever made, or created humans when He flooded the earth." And I've
He
talked to
repented. He repented of it.
yeah, that. And so, and in my mind, this is where like the logic and I guess society plays is you don't repent or you don't repent for something unless you feel like you did something wrong. And by him saying, I repent making you, doesn't that mean that he made a mistake or he saw that it was a mistake?
I'm not really sure if he's seen it as a mistake. The God seems to represent itself as allowing us to have the choice and free will. The problem with a lot of these Bibles nowadays is there are some books that are not in the Bible for whatever reason. The Catholics decide to not put them in there. A lot of people, when they read the flood story, they assume that a bunch of people pissed God off. They made him angry, so then he just drowned them all. But there's actually more to it, and it's a lot more mystical. I hate to use that word. Apparently, the entire human race was plagued by some interactions that they had with fallen angels, and he had to destroy it because they were no longer considered. They were now hybrid, half angel, half human, causing a lot of issues.
I haven't heard that one before.
It's in also the story of Enoch. They're called Nephilims.
Nephilims, okay.
So he didn't just destroy humans because humans were acting like jackasses. It was because their blood had been completely altered. Kind of like if
Hmm.
a animal were to have sex with a different kind of animal, it would cause a completely different form, wipe out the very genetics that originally was meant for.
Yeah.
So does that make sense why God would be like, we've got an issue here where things went a different way than what he wanted it to be. See, there's a difference between God's will and then mankind having his choice and his free will to be able to do what he wants. Just because God created all things and gave the potential doesn't necessarily mean he wants us to continuously or completely destroy ourselves with disgustingness. So he
Yeah.
started over. He reset.
Now, do you think there could be some people who are blessed more, like have certain gifts that science can't explain but religion can? For
Uh,
instance, for instance, like I've been able, like if someone like my grams, for instance, she had a really bad disc in her back to where she couldn't sit for more than 20 minutes or lay down for more than 20 minutes, and I couldn't stand to see her suffer. Like it made me cry seeing her in so much pain. So, like I said, I've also dabbled in like paranormal stuff or mysticism or whatever you want to call it. And so I knew that if I turned to what was it, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, the four archangels, there's six, but the main four, that I might be able to help her. So like I just focused on, the light, the healing, and healed her back to where that's the only part of her body that doesn't hurt. Everything else hurt, but not that one spot. And I've been able to do stuff like that my whole life. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's just schizophrenia. You're just imagining it." I'm like, "But I have real results. I have experience. I have other people who have experienced it, and I've always felt different. There's me, but there's something more to it. That's why I don't say that I have special powers. That's why I say I have gifts, because that's the way I look at it. And when you said about the whole Nephilim thing, like that made me start thinking. It's like, could some people be gifted like that? Like have mixed blood still? Do you think that there might be that around?
Well, the if you look in the New Testament, it says in First Peter, the angels that participated in this mess, they're chained in some realm called the outer darkness. Kind of reminds me outside of space and time. I don't know. I mean, you have to understand. Being that I'm decently popular on YouTube, won't be anymore as soon as I delete the channel. But I've talked to countless people who believe that they have fantastic gifts. And I do believe it's possible for people to have gifts, but I can't individually say, oh, yeah, I completely believe, because I still got a lot of skepticism in me on a lot of things. I'd have to actually be hanging out with you, maybe playing a military game and see you do something before I could officially say, sure, this guy's got something going on, you know?
Yeah. And see, I think, and most people, when you hear someone say, "Oh, I'm a Christian," they're like, "Oh, so you believe anything?" Or like, I think it's healthy to have skepticism. Otherwise, you're gullible, and you can get taken for a ride. But like finding that balance between belief and skepticism, I think, is really hard. Like I am walking the line between both of them, but I try to find that balance. Do you know about yin and yang?
Yeah, there's kind of a concept of that in the Bible, beginning and end, Alpha, Omega. There's two sides to every coin type of thing. Sure.
See, if I'm more in line with that. Like, I believe life is about balance. Think about oxygen, basic. Too much oxygen, we die. Not enough, we die. Water, everything that keeps us alive has to be within a very particular balance. And I try to live my life in balance. Within that balance of okay, too much bad, not enough bad. Um, but like if, the way I do it is like if I'm being too good, I have to kind of balance that out with doing like something to like one bad thing to equal it out. So like usually with me was always like through manipulation, but I've always tried to keep that balance because if I'm too good, I get physically ill. If I'm too bad, I get mentally ill. Like I'll have a really bad episode where I feel like I'm losing my mind, and I don't know if that's just all placebo effect or whatever. But like I've always tried to live my life in balance. It's not easy, but we all have our own special way of making it through this struggle called life.
All right, I hear you there. Yeah, if anything, whether you're doing negative or positive things in your own moral view, you're going to become exhausted. It's going to be rough on you. You're doing things that involve every physical thing you do has a reaction of your mind. That's why I believe that a lot of people can suffer from a term I kind of throw out there as spiritual cancer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still listening to you. When I go quiet like that, that means I'm waiting for you to be able to talk about whatever you like.
Oh, okay. Um, so another thing that's kind of off topic a little bit is I've I've noticed that like you have dentures, right?
I do, but I never hardly use them. My issue is they cause me to gag and have reflex issues. So yeah.
Because I'm going to eventually have to have my teeth, top teeth removed and probably my bottom at some point.
No, you better
Because
not let DP know that, or you'll be having a TV series made about you.
I don't know if hell if one of them willing to give me $1,000, shit.
Oh, they didn't think I was actually going to do it. It took me a month before I ended up getting my money for that. I'm just joking with you and all that. That's a terrible thing. I'm sorry that you're going to end up losing your teeth over it, but at least you won't suffer from tooth problems anymore and the pain. There's only
Oh
one
yeah.
thing I can think of worse than teeth issues, and that's getting kicked in the fucking nuts right in the taint area.
Oh yeah. That shit hurts. But at least that pain goes away after a little bit. The tooth pain, man. Like I haven't slept all night because I was in so much pain between my knee and my teeth. And like my question is like how long like you said you don't use your dentures, so how do you learn to eat without them? Because like I'm afraid to like when they take the top teeth, I'm still gonna have my bottom before I get the top dentures. But it's like how do you eat? Like that's what I like that I always thought like oh, you just have to do like mashed potatoes and eggs and shit like that.
Well, I don't know what kind of jaw you have if you've got what we call an iron jaw. I'm able to eat a lot of different things with no problems, almost as if there were teeth in there. However, I mean, if you were to try to eat chips or you'd eat chicken, I will tell you this, in your first year, it'll be weird. You'll feel like you need to be very careful. My wife got me some soup once that had like some chunks of roast in it, and I didn't tear it apart like I was supposed to, and I almost choked to death. So
Damn.
you have to make sure that you tear shit up real good. You'll find it gets easier. It starts becoming very natural.
Because that's the one thing I was worried about. Is like I like food, but like right now it's hard to eat a lot of things because of the teeth problem. I'm just like it's like oh that's gonna suck. I'm not gonna be able to eat anything. Like I know someone that has no teeth and can eat apples. It's like holy shit. It's like I hope I have strong jaws like that. It's like oh look an apple, and it's like that doesn't hurt. She's like nah. I'm like wow.
Yeah, apples are not something I'm able to handle. I can do applesauce. I've got a pretty strong jaw, but apples are a completely different story. That's rough.
Yeah, and because I've noticed that back in the day, I don't know if they still do it, but the whole mac and cheese thing, like I never understood that.
Oh, that was a conversation. That's a funny story. This might give you a kick, but me and Paul Zigo back in the day, whenever we were buddies and we were talking, and we'd spend a lot of time discussing our depression issues and all that. And he was telling me about how he was having some hard times. When my wife walks in and says, "Honey, dinner's almost ready," and I said, what do we got, babe?" and he was sitting on Skype with me whenever I was talking to her. And she goes, "Well, sweetie, we've got tuna, mac and cheese, and all that." And I'm like, "Oh man." I was like, "Dear, what happened with the steak and all that kind of stuff, that you were talking about yesterday?" And he goes, "Oh, mac and cheese." So he started getting all excited about that. And my wife comes over and says, "Hey, Paul, how you doing? I hope you're doing well," and everything like that. And then she went in the other room and did her thing. For whatever reason, that tickled his ass, and he felt like that needed to be something that was talked about all the time. It's just my wife walked in the room and asked me if that's what I wanted. I prefer steak. I'm a steak man, but I'm going to eat whatever the hell a woman puts in front of me. That's just the way it works.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Not
That
the most
happens a lot.
exciting words into that bullshit, right?
No, it's fine. I mean, some of the greatest stories come from very plain beginnings. But
I hear you there. At least it wasn't cucumbers.
um, but yeah, and like like I don't know, like my brain's all over the place. It's always like this.
You can ask whatever you want. I'm used to people bombarding me with all kinds of interesting, weird stuff.
Now, because I've noticed that like one of the things that you always talked about your son who's a musician. Is he still?
My brother's a musician.
Oh, your brother. Okay.
My son, he does all kinds of other different things, but I decided a long time ago, because I myself, besides writing, I also did music for a long time, and actually did some albums with my brother. But I realized the music industry turned to shit. I'd say late 90s. It started going downhill. It was more about imagery than the actual talent and skill of it. I didn't want my daughter or my son to get into that, so I've never even attempted to try to teach them how to play musical instruments. Taught my brother, though, and then my brother ended up blowing me out of the damn water later on guitar.
So now, what if your kids ever want to have their own YouTube channel? Are you going to let them, or are you going to be like, yeah, no, YouTube's not for you?
Well, my son did have a channel. My son had Games You Love, right?
Oh, that was his channel?
Well, I gave it over to him because he played all kinds of different varieties of games. I know people like Fallout and Skyrim, but that at the time was the only thing I was committed to, as well as classic World of Warcraft. My son plays all kinds of different things, and I thought that would make for a more interesting deal. My wife also had a channel too, but people kept on talking about how they wanted to beat her ass, how they would rape her in front of me and do horrible things. So her, as well as my son, made the decision that they didn't want to no longer do it anymore. And what am I going to say? Oh, you should, though, because there's so many benefits to being treated like mutt on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Do whatever makes you happy.
So another question is like, so what kind of music are you into? Like, because I know rock was one of the things, because you always had like a lot of rock songs playing on your YouTube in the beginning. So what kind of music do you actually like?
I like rock. I like heavy metal. It depends on what the bands are, but I do notice that I like a lot of 80s bands. I like back when they did guitar solos and drum solos. I like singers like I can go from Elton John to Fred Mercury from Queen, all the way to the point of Metallica, Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. They don't have to sing really great, but I do like to be able to understand what the fuck I'm listening to. I don't like Cookie Monster metal.
Oh yeah, screamo and stuff like that. Yeah, no.
Yeah. It's hard to grow up in the 70s and 80s and then listen to something like that, and actually, when you compare it to all the brilliance that has come out there, and say, oh yeah, that's fucking beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, did you ever have any like alcohol addictions or anything like that? Because that's another thing I struggle with, because because of my mental illnesses, alcohol helps. It's a double-edged sword, but because I know you've overcome a lot of stuff, but was that one of the things?
Well, my big vices, and everybody's known about this, was smoking cigarettes. I
Yeah.
smoked like a fucking chimney, and people told me I ought to do vapors, but just recently, vapor companies got sued because apparently they were a lot more dangerous than what people were
Mm,
told. So
yeah.
yeah, that sucks. It's also blown up in people's fucking face. Well, when it comes to alcohol, I had a life changing experience around 17, 18 years old. I was born and raised with a guy by the name of Mark Felton who was like my brother. He was on his way to college and some fucking drunk driver killed him. So I kind of
Damn.
made an oath at his grave that I would stay away from getting myself drunk and getting all fucked up and everything like that. So since then, I had a snots or once or whatever the fuck that crap is called, like in my first year being on YouTube. And just recently, I was severely depressed and feeling like absolute shit. I told my wife about it. I had another friend betray me. And that was extremely damaging for me. Friend was someone for years. So my
Yeah.
wife went out. She bought some Coca-Cola and some Jack Daniels, poured that in a cup for me. I hit it, became inebriated, was very relaxed and chill. The problem with alcohol is it can, if you do it in moderation, chill you out. And
Hmm.
it's nothing against it in the Bible. I don't know if you realize this. Jesus actually turned water into wine.
Yeah.
So obviously, if he had problems with alcohol, he'd be like, no, 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 no. Right? So yeah, that's how I see it. You were wanting to tell me about it, though.
Yeah. Because like ever since I was probably about 8 years old when my uncle died, like I've always woke up pissed off that I woke up. Like it's not that I'm suicidal, it's just that I don't care. And I've never been able to shake that. Like it's a constant thing. Like if I got hit by a bus, I'd be okay with it, type thing. And so like when I'm drinking, I don't have that feeling. Um, I mean, I smoke weed too, and I'm trying to get off the alcohol because I actually have fatty liver. It might be my weight or the alcohol, a combination of both. But you know, and because meds, I don't like being on medicine. It makes me feel like a zombie, and I hate that feeling. When you feel like you're not in control of yourself. Um, and so I'm trying to get off the alcohol because I don't want to be dependent on anything except myself. But my state of mind, I'm not able to do that right now. And when people say, "Well, just turn to God," I'm like, doesn't work for me the same way that it does a lot of people. And maybe one day I'll have a belief that's strong enough to completely change that. But another thing I was going to ask you is,
Well,
what do you think?
I was going to say
Oh,
something real quick to you.
eh,
It doesn't matter what people throw at you on these different reasons that you are things that you need to attach yourself to. Even the concept of God, by telling you that if you go to God, then it's going to solve all your problems. Not exactly. I think
yeah,
that if a person truly wants to stop drinking alcohol, I mean, you have to be 100% in your own heart that it's something you want to change about yourself or stop. It's the only way. You can believe in God all day. You can believe that the world and the universe will be a much prettier place with more butterflies if you do a certain thing. But if you don't believe completely in yourself, it won't work. You have to believe in yourself. But go ahead.
yeah.
What were you going to ask?
Because I know when a lot of people have like religious debates, and I've seen that. I've seen some that you've been in, some that G-Man has been in. Um, it's always the same stuff like, oh, well, causality, evolution, all that. But my question is like, how many times do people throw Leviticus at you? Like when they're like, oh, if you're a Christian, then you're not supposed to wear mixed fabrics, or you're not supposed to cut your hair and stuff like that. Like, I think one of the biggest reasons why I have a hard time with being like a Christian or something is because like of those little things. It's like if you're a Christian, you have to be 100% Christian. Can you be 37% Christian? Stuff like that. What's your thought on that?
Well, I myself, whenever I was an atheist, I used to make countless videos about how ridiculous I seen the different tribes of Israel back in ancient days represented. Well, that's the Levites. That's their own laws and their own rules. I don't know if a lot of people get mixed up when they read the Bible. It doesn't just talk about God's people. It also talks about the different tribes of pagans. I mean, hell, it tells you an entire history of the Egyptians, and they're not Christian or Jewish, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes people read these things and get all kinds of mixed up. Like, for instance, a lot of people like to bring up, yeah, I have been asked this. What about capital punishment? Don't you think some of those rules are a bit unfair? I think some of them are extremely hardcore, but I understand that it was a different culture of the day. You couldn't just call 911 on the telephone and get the police to come help you. They had more of a kind of like a fallout type of justice system. You screw up really bad, you're not beneficial for the community, you got to get wiped. You
Yeah.
know? Go ahead.
Um, what do you think about eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth?
Eye for an eye. Well, I already believe that people will reap what they sow. And if you think about it, that's kind of like an eye for an eye. People, even if you're an atheist, you have to believe in some kind of natural karma. I'll give you an example. If you're an asshole long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get shit on yourself.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I actually like that one. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, I just come up with it as I go. What are you going to do?
Because like going back to like the yin and yang thing, like I also believe in what I call the fates. You know, the three sisters of fate, I think is what the Greeks, I believe it was, or the Romans, one of them. Um, but like I believe that everything happens for a reason. Like when it comes to free will, I'm kind of sketchy on that. Um, but I believe everything happens for a reason. You might not understand the reason, but everything's a reason. Like if I was never bullied, I wouldn't be strong enough to deal with, you know, myself. You know, I wouldn't be able to deal with people making fun of me. Now someone's like, "Oh, you're a fat ass." I'm like, and like then they have to sit there and search for a response because everyone's used to, you know, oh that hit, he's big, he's not gonna like being called big. I'm like, I'm used to it. Like I'm 32, and like I grew up big. You know, I got bullied all the time. But like if you, and I also believe that you can't appreciate the light unless you have some dark. Like if you have nothing but good days, how do you know they're good? You know, you've got to have some thunderstorms in your life. You know, you've got to have those rough patches so you understand and value the good. But back to what we were talking about originally when this started, I do completely agree that if good and evil have to exist, but I also believe science and religion are actually part of the same coin, though. They're both ways of explaining what's going on. You know why things happen. I believe maybe they're both right. You know, not everything has to be one sided. You know, just like back in the like language, you have masculine and feminine. You know, like in German and a lot of the European languages, but you also have neutral. And think about you in life, you have male, female. You have, you know, this constant duality in life. But when it comes to karma, yeah, if you're like you said, if you're an asshole long enough, you're gonna get shit on yourself. That's why I try not to be an asshole. You know, I try to help people because maybe, just maybe, that's a good mark in the book. You know, and but I think a lot of people are very selfish too. Like they do good for people and expect something in return. But at that point, does wanting something in return of doing something good negate the goodness?
No, I don't think it's wrong for people to desire something good to happen for themselves. It's human nature. When we go out and we do good things or we try to help people, I don't see it as a problem where if you were to find yourself in a hard way or in a hole one day, that someone doesn't reach down and help pull you out whenever you're having your issue.
Yeah,
I don't think that that's greedy or stingy in any kind of way. In fact, Jesus told people, you know, to love your neighbors, do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Well, obviously, you're going to want to do unto yourself, right?
yeah,
Very good. So there's nothing wrong with it, unless what you're doing is harming people, of course.
And because, like I touched on earlier, like I've just been diagnosed recently with narcissistic personality disorder. And at first, I'm like, I'm not like that. I care about people. I want to help people. But when I started reading about it and, understanding it, I'm like, it's not about, you wanting everything for yourself.